having us.
Thank you.
So without any further delay, let's move on to the questions that we have in store today. The first question, which I would like to ask both of you, is that can you tell us about the journey and process that actually led to the formation of TreeWear?
Yeah, sure. So firstly, I'd like to say thank you guys for having us. It's really great to see people of the younger generation take the mantle and really I guess approach these topics that are really vital now and will be becoming more vital down the line. So yeah, it's great that you guys are taking the initiative and incorporating
Sustainability.
since the sustainability or eco-friendly, just for lack of a better term, living as part of your curriculum, and what you guys are looking at in terms of a father outreach as well. So to answer your question about how we started, both Mikail and us come from fairly different backgrounds, and in about 2015 we were working different jobs just as part of normal companies, and that's when we actually took the the chance to start working towards TreeWear. It was a bit of a risk at the time, but mainly the motivation came from just simply looking at what was happening around us. I think having been living in Bombay from a young age, then having left and then coming back and seeing the kind of difference, and noticing the changes that were happening, for example in beaches, knowing about the landfills and the changes in greenery and forestry around the city, it became apparent that there were a lot of changes taking place, and we didn't really feel like we were doing much about it. And being inspired so much by nature, or finding so much nature and beauty in nature, we just felt like there should be something we could do, or we should do towards this problem, to work towards this problem. And basically that's when we thought of the idea of TreeWear and started carrying out the business activities from that angle.
And actually it was more of a chance conversation between Mishal and I. Like he said, we were doing two different things, and in very different fields at the time. And we just decided that we were two people who were um, it, it, trying to shift our own lifestyles into a more sustainable lifestyle. So there was a chance conversation where we just kind of started ideating and brainstorming about something that we'd like to do for the environment in our own personal capacity. And the idea of TreeWear kind of stemmed from there, because we thought that there's only so much we can do as individuals. But if we were to try and start a business where each person could have a tangible impact on the environment, that's where things could really start to make a change. And that's how the idea of TreeWear was born.
Right. Thank you. That was a great and inspiring answer. So I'll just move on to the second question. And I think this is a question in the mind of a lot of people, because whenever someone thinks about sustainability in business, there's often some doubt in their mind. So how hard is it to have a profitable business while simultaneously doing good for the environment and having that goal of sustainability in your mind?
So it's obviously like a very important question, and I guess throughout our time, running this business, we've always kind of, generally speaking, the attitude is always that if you are making profits, you're probably going to have a negative impact on the environment, or if you're making enough money or too much money that way, it could have a negative impact on the environment. And so there's always this discussion of separating the two and one being counterproductive to the other. And I think that's mostly due to how companies and big businesses that are really up there in our mind, a lot of bigger brands that we associate with on a daily basis without even realizing it, have kind of set that kind of tone, I think, to a large extent, where this is how it works and this is how it should be. But I think it is definitely possible to break away from that. and work towards something that is, thinking about the planet, trying to be a little bit more sustainable in its approach, and yet actually run successfully. For us as a brand, not just the sales aspect is important, but building the brand, the kind of awareness that we spread through, the messaging that we have, not only about the products, but other aspects of the environment as well, like information related to the environment, like what's in the news, stuff like that as well. Tips on how to be more eco-friendly in your daily lifestyle, that's another thing. So those are all things that are kind of part of the brand, and it builds as time goes on. And I think it's definitely becoming more and more commonplace for brands or for companies to start thinking about their impact as they like build and grow, because I think more and more people are now, with access to the internet, becoming aware of not only what's happening around them but around the entire planet. So I think that's definitely motivating people to think about their choices more. And I think it's like the definitely the most natural way to go is that people are going to start considering that more and more. So it has been challenging so far because people are price sensitive about the products that they buy, especially in an Indian market. And being compared to a normal product in terms of price is really difficult for us, because we use a completely different range of ingredients in our products. So like competing that way in terms of the processes, the industrial processes a normal brand would use versus our handmade processes, it is definitely a challenge. But people are becoming more aware of it. And I think with that support, with that movement that's taking place, it's become a lot easier now for a brand to focus on sustainability and also be successful, because a lot of the consumers are asking for it. A lot of the consumers are doing their little bit of due diligence to a certain level to see what kind of impact your company is having. So yeah, definitely a challenging thing, but at the same time, since we started till now, it's become a lot more I guess suitable for people,
Commonplace. Yeah.
to enter the market and work towards a sustainable business.
Yeah, just to kind of just elaborate on what Mishal said, I think that nowadays people are much more aware, and they like to only buy from companies, or they like to subscribe to businesses that share their own values. And I think that people's values are definitely changing and becoming more conscious about the environment. And I think that plays a big role in how businesses react, because I feel that in the previous generation it was always about just profits over everything else. But now there's a triple P approach, which is people, planet, and profit. And that in its essence is actually the main reason why people are switching over, because I feel that in the past we've been lulled or into a false sense of what things actually cost, and what the cost, not only of the product but the cost of making the product, of getting rid of the product. Those are things that are really important to consider. And once those things are been kind of thought about and brought to people in a way that helps them have a similar user experience, but at the same time is much better than what the status quo is, people start to really understand that there is a better way. And that in itself, we've seen, at least in our experience, there's been a lot of people who definitely are moving in that direction. So although it is definitely challenging, I don't think it's getting easier. And I think the status quo is changing. Maybe in 15-20 years we might even, like, this old way of doing business, which is not trying to consider anything about the planet and things like that, will really go out the window. And that's why companies as big as Unilever and things like that are even starting to greenwash. And that's basically a new challenge for us as a business, where businesses that are not doing anything to really help the environment are promoting themselves as such. So I think we will go through a stage of that where people are doing that, but eventually people are smart enough to realize the difference of what companies are actually trying to make a difference and what companies are just trying to catch on to the trend.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that there will be success for a lot of companies that are trying to help the environment as well as the planet.
Yeah, so I'll just add lastly to that. In fact, so much so that we have seen a lot of, since we've started, a lot of other brands also in very interesting spaces related to sustainability crop up, and they're doing really well also at the moment. So we have seen that firsthand. Given that there is so much growth in this space, there are a couple of tips that I just kind of, or like a couple of basic factors that you guys should consider before getting into something that is a sustainable business on entrepreneurship or like a startup, and that's to be innovative. Find a gap in the market, make sure you do your research, make sure something doesn't exist right next door and you're just doing the same thing and have to compete right next door with someone. So find a gap. And yeah, like since like mostly a lot of things are done online, it does make things a lot easy, so a lot easier in terms of just keeping things a little bit more within your control. So yeah, do that and look for real opportunities. Yeah, like I think it's really, like Mikhail was saying, it's a really important thing to be aware of greenwashing. Don't Doesn't make sense to start something which doesn't foundationally have that built into it, because sooner or later it'll start unraveling, and then like the real intent of the company will kind of come out. And if you're trying to be a bit sustainable with your approach, you're trying to be thoughtful towards the planet, then you should do that from the get-go, is our advice.
Right. Thank you for such a detailed elaboration. And I mean, I totally agree with all the points that you said about changing the changes in the demand patterns and about how companies are greenwashing continuously. But now, something on in the line with the back-end functioning of your business. What are the platforms that have enabled you to reach out to your target market, and how did you go about narrowing down on these platforms that you now use?
Yep. So just to kind of give you, I mean, honestly, it's a bit of trial and error. We since 2016 we have kind of uh, done certain things, and because we're a bootstrap company, for us it was very important to be able to manage all aspects of the business within ourselves largely. So we have kind of gone through different iterations. For example, now our website is on Shopify. Previously, it was on Wix, and then we went through certain challenges with load times and the design of the website, etc., etc. And those were things that actually drove us to find a better solution. So I would say that never settle for just one solution. Something might work for a certain amount of time, but I think the thing about it is you need to keep on searching for something better, and that's always been a core driver for our business. In finding, okay, you found a certain solution, but there might always be something better than that. So it is important to keep on being creative and being innovative in trying to uh, understand consumer perspectives, and also how to reach them more easily. So definitely being online has been a big part of that. There's been a huge change since we started. Most of the organic stores and things like that mostly used to be offline, and now I'd say even slightly prior to COVID, there's been a huge boom in a lot of online websites that promote natural and sustainable products. And yeah, definitely I think those are things that have really helped us kind of evolve through our business journey.
Yeah. I'd also like to additionally put out that it's always a bit of a question mark, and it was for us too. I think we're kind of at a point now where we're looking at it practically, but also kind of are being careful with how we kind of approach it. Is working with a company like Amazon, right? So normally you would not put being eco-friendly or sustainable in terms of how companies run, and Amazon generally they tend to overpack their items. They're not particularly like like that but yeah, they're not very particular about how they package stuff and trying to reduce the waste that's created from that. Also, in terms of how they treat their employees and the whole social angle over there, also there's a couple of question marks. But without going into too much detail, we were a little bit at first hesitant about working with or through Amazon as a platform for our business, because generally we didn't have that perception that they went hand in hand. But being a little bit practical and pragmatic about the situation, we realized that most people nowadays, especially in India, a lot of people that were trying to educate about our product and the benefits that it has for people as well as the planet. A lot of them now, because a lot of people generally shop on Amazon, they also shop on Amazon. So there is a large reach of audience through Amazon. We currently are listed there, but we've kind of made a couple of who and rahs about how our products have been packaged in the past. So now we've got to a good thing where we are managing that to a large extent, how our products are sent out, rather than having them manage that. So that's kind of the compromise that we got, down to. And yeah, we realized that it's important for a business to have that exposure through Amazon. It's provided us some level of trust as well. I think if you have your own e-commerce platform and your own website, being on Amazon is a little bit of a boost, because people are like, okay, they are on Amazon. It's like a trusted brand, generally speaking. They have both these platforms set up. So yeah, it's definitely a question mark. But I would say, in the earlier to mid stages, and if you're seeing a good amount of growth, it's worth sticking up for your own principles while doing that. And that's, I think, some of the steps that we've taken. We've not just been like, oh, well, this is how it is and this is how they package it and we're going to leave it at that. We actually did make a bit of a push to make a little bit of noise about it, so that at least as a company, as a brand of our own, we're able to make some difference.
And share your values with a much bigger business and try to
Encourage them
encourage
also.
change.
Like entice them to do the same, like. So yeah, definitely worth considering the Amazon aspect as well. But mostly e-commerce now with COVID and stuff is the way that things have progressed. We were focusing a lot on online, or not a lot, but a fair bit, maybe like 20 to 30% of our effort was going into offline sales, like farmers markets, and collaborating with stores across the country that are a little bit more geared towards an eco-friendly way of living, or a sustainable way of living, or organic produce, those kind of shops. But unfortunately, till now, we've not seen that resurgence happen yet. A few of them had to actually shut down. A couple of them are still kind of just, keeping the thing just rolling, and trying to get back to where they were pre-COVID. So it's definitely been a hit for a lot of offline, businesses trying to do the right thing. But we're trying to extend our support also wherever possible to ensure that they can, like whatever we can do in our capacity to, like help them keep their business going. Yeah, so that's kind of how we've approached and reached Shopify as an e-commerce platform that we focus most of our time on now.
Right. Got it. And I think just before this question, we touched on how there's a increasing demand for sustainable products, how people are getting educated about it. There's a whole change in the demand patterns, but that also that also causes a bit of a problem, because like, how do you as a sustainable business tackle expansion and increasing the scope of clientele? Because being a sustainable business, the whole aspect of mass production, and often people are under the assumption that mass production would definitely mean that there are some slips and snags when it comes to maintaining the quality and the sustainability of the product. So how do you as a business deal with that?
Yeah, so I think like how Mikail mentioned earlier, that we do try to think about it from all angles, right? It's not just the profitability thing. So we do have to consider the scale of like the ingredients that we use, like the volumes that we use, and I think
Where we source them
from exactly.
So I think it is a question of even like choosing the right partners, considering very carefully the businesses or the people that you go into business with, because as your product becomes more popular, you are kind of faced with this challenge, like you said, that if I mass produce my product, uh, you will cut corners somewhere, or you will maybe have to compromise somewhere or the other. And honestly speaking, there is always some amount of compromise that goes into something like that. And it is generally speaking, I would say it is about sticking to your guns about certain things, whereas you might be able to compromise on others. So for us, we've always tried to ensure, that people who are, for example, making the products, our team and stuff like that, are always they're being positively impacted, as well as the ingredients that we're sourcing, the sourcing of the ingredients is also local and impacting certain social group positively in the right way, and not in an irresponsible way. So I think that responsibility plays a big part of scaling up like this. And I would say that there's been many opportunities for us to even scale up way beyond what we are today. But we've consciously made the decision to not do so, just for the fact that it would compromise parts of the business in a core way that we would not like it to go, because we would be then changing our own values. And I think that sticking to your guns about your values, I mean, I'm just kind of reiterating the same point, is the main thing about trying to scale your business, but at the same time maintain quality and maintain
The
a
sustainability.
sustainability. Sustainability.
So I would like to add to that also by saying that, yeah, it is really down to the business sometimes. There's always this question that is it the consumer's responsibility or is it the responsibility of the business? And yeah, for certain things, maybe, each one of us do need to take that initiative and, try to live a better life towards the planet in our own lives. But definitely some aspects of it, and you guys should feel a little bit better about this because they do fall on the business. And there are a lot of businesses who aren't really functioning in the right way and are kind of sometimes shirking that responsibility onto the consumer, which we don't think is the right thing to do in many cases. It's like saying, oh, like, buy this and you recycle it and stuff like that. It's recyclable, but now how you recycle it and all is up to you. But we're still going to put it out in these plastic bottles. So if they reach you, and if you can't recycle it and you put it in your bin, here's like a recycled plastic that's going to anyways end up in the landfill, right? I mean, I hate taking names, but I've come across a brand recently that's a Unilever brand that's projecting itself to be a planet friendly brand. And with, all the kind of stuff that they're involved in this day and age, there's really very little they can do to justify that, in the sense that as a bigger brand, when you're causing this much harm to the environment, you can't turn around and have a smaller part of your company say that, oh, listen, we're trying to make this effort and this is what we're all about and stuff, because those aren't the values. I think a lot of times they hide the fact that it's a Unilever company, because of even in the news, the kind of flack they're facing, So, yeah, I think in those cases, and specifically with the question that you asked, the onus does lie sometimes with the business owners and the decisions that they make. And that's why we've tried to approach it in a responsible way. This brand that I'm talking about, they talk about selling 4 bottles of shampoo every minute, but then they're like somehow locally sourcing this from places in Africa and Madagascar and this and that. So how do you maintain that volume and, like, sustainably and, properly source those ingredients without impacting that, the flora and fauna in that area by overplanting something, or, like, cutting down fields and planting your own stuff and saying it's taken from those areas. So it's kind of annoying that companies do that. But yeah, there are points in time where you as a consumer should hold the companies that you're buying from, or that you who are telling you something and are not fulfilling that promise that you feel like they should be. You definitely, it's good to voice that. And I think the more people voice that, the more that change will be enticed. There is definitely a responsibility of the people running the company at some points in time, and this is one of those cases.
Right. Got it. And I think just in line with the previous question that I asked you, but a bit more on the technical side, to ensure that these sustainable systems are in place, what do you do to maintain that whole line of sustainability in your supply chain? And as I said before, like especially during when you're producing such a large quantity, like are there any managerial techniques or models or systems that you put in place to ensure that what the product that reaches the customer, it is it really defines the values of the company?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the best way to approach that is to think about that at the beginning of the product development, right? Like as we progress as a company, we've launched a couple of different products. We started off with clothing, we moved a bit into personal care, and that's kind of where we are now. But for each product that we developed and put out there, we considered the impact and the entire life cycle of the product, and like what the packaging was going to end up like. Can we encourage people to reuse it? That's fine. Like, at least there's some options that we're giving people. We're letting them know this is like what it's made from, this is how it's made. But considering all that in the beginning is really important for us, because we've had a lot of ideas that we have, kind of placed on the back burner until we come up with a creative solution to put it out there in a responsible way. So for us, the benchmark has always been to be very critical of those elements like packaging, the ingredients, the wastage, and the processes that we use all the way at the beginning of the development of the product. And then as the criteria matches up and as we kind of like creatively extend ourselves, then we can come up with different ideas for maybe how the packaging works out. And, and once we're comfortable with that, we kind of progress it further. That being said, there's always some little bit of compromise that we work towards. Like for example, we have hand cleansing lotions which use a pump. It's a glass bottle, but the pump has parts that use plastic. Right now, no matter where you go on planet Earth today, there's very few places, or probably no places, that will give you a pump in that's made in a slightly larger quantity that does not contain plastic in it somewhere or the other. So I mean, we know that it exists there, but then part of our job is to let people know that, look, we are aware of this fact, and this is the suggestion that we're making, perhaps for you to reuse it. And the larger thing for us also as a company is kind of related to the case study, but is to make this consumption pattern a little bit more efficient in how the kind of impact that it has towards the environment. So we are constantly thinking about that. And what we do is we've launched our products at a particular level of compromise, but our aim is to, especially for products that we know are moving faster and are having more of an impact, we put more time into redeveloping certain aspects of it to make it even more uh, like planet friendly if possible, or even more better to use, or even better to use for a customer. So yeah, I think the answer is mostly in how we limit ourselves somewhat, even though it sounds strange, in releasing our products. We kind of tend to have a fairly good, or like a fairly strict filter. And then if things kind of work past the filter, that's how we tend to put it out there. So it's always like a pre-thought, rather than saying, oh, we know that people would love this, but let's just put it out in a plastic packaging now, and then later we'll think of some solution. So I think sometimes that approach becomes a little bit, it's a bit of a sometimes you're a little tempted to go that way, and it's just like, I really see the potential in this, I want to put it out there. But yeah, we take that restraint to really think about it. We get together all the information about our packaging and ingredients and the companies like that we're going to be partnering and working with, and the kind of impact they have, and then we go forward and launch a product. So far we've taken that approach, and that's helped us manage it to a very large extent.
Yeah, so I think that more or less, just to summarize what Mishal is saying, to take a sort of resource-based approach to product development and the product life cycle is something that's really important. Having gone through this process and been on the other end as a consumer as well, I wish that companies would kind of keep those things in mind when producing their products. And obviously, it's not it's not 100% all the time. You can put systems in place, and systems may work flawlessly, and some of them may be slightly flawed or have some certain
Room for
issues with
improvement.
them where you see some room for improvement. So I think the important thing is to not, like, once you've done the product and once you've gotten it out there, to not stop thinking about those things, and to not like to keep focusing on trying to improve your systems and ways to make your whole supply chain more efficient and less resource intensive. So I think that it definitely helps a lot if you do that before actually creating the product, or putting the product out in a mass scale. Because the flexibility or the wonderful thing about having a small business is you can even try certain things out, and if they're not working, you can shelve them. And it's a good opportunity for you to be creative and try to implement things that you feel would be a good way to kind of improve the system while it's at that stage, rather than let it get to a mass scale and then have to think about, oh my god, I'm creating so much waste, or I'm doing this. Or so definitely I think that is the key takeaway from the question.
Yeah, I'll give you just a very simple example of it. Like when we started our deodorants, the packaging itself is mostly compostable, minus the inner lining. And we were working towards finding a label that we could kind of include and compost the entire thing with. And, so initially one of the criteria is that being in like a toilet or a bathroom space, it gets wet often. So just simply having it printed on normal paper led to a lot of like bleeding of ink, and like it being unlegible very soon. So we worked towards a solution where it was waterproof, but then it was a plastic label. So that was good for the consumer because it would provide them the directions and the ingredients and everything throughout the life cycle of the product. But we didn't find that to be great because of the use of that one extra layer of plastic, which we could technically avoid. So as the product became more popular and as it grew, we soon after that started looking at options for finding a non-plastic alternative to the label. Right, it's something as small as that, but we realized that okay, these are parts of the product that are yet to fulfill a criteria of just being that little bit more closer towards being planet friendly. So we do spend some of our time and effort revisiting products, uh, kind of going back to the drawing board in some senses, and then or improving those particular aspects. So yeah, the label is just one approach, but there's always small aspects to every product that employ that same technique.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And just to now like focus a bit on the financial side of the business. When you first started the business, what did your initial investments look like, and what were the largest initial challenges that you faced with respect to the finances?
Yeah, so initially, because we approached this idea something that was a little bit of a passion project, and rather than like growing a business for profit, we really just wanted to assess if people were ready to become part of this movement that we were kind of willing to put out. So as we got into the garment side of things, there was obviously a little bit of initial investment behind the materials that we had for the clothes. And at that point in time, we did like the basic thing of setting up the business, and yeah, like the running a website, and domain costs and all those few things. So all that together, initially we had invested about 5 lakhs, more or less, just to kind of get us through the clothing aspect, and yeah, setting up the business and everything else. Then from then on, we basically relied on selling the clothing, and then slowly moved into personal care and branched out from there. And then since then, we've taken a few small rounds rounds of funding from friends and family, but it's a manageable amount. It's really not like seed funding of that level and like going for VC funding yet. We've decided to, until we find like that the good balance for our products, and as we take these few steps of scaling up the company step by step. I think when we get to a point where we feel like we've scaled it with that responsible approach towards our ingredients and our processes, then we may look for some larger amounts of funding. But yeah, it was in like about 5 lakhs of initial funding that we put in ourselves, and then a couple of rounds of friends and family funding that has kind of got us through.
Yeah, and I would just like to highlight the, that kind of going back to one of the earlier questions about the challenges. It is always a challenge to take the leap of faith to start a new business. So we kind of had to, work according to what vendors and things like that were looking. So we had to look at a certain MOQ and things like that. So there's a lot of risk involved in investing your own money and time and effort into something that may not really work out. And I think that, like, definitely financially, that is something to kind of think about in at the initial stages before you start a business. But if you do kind of weigh it out, if you do really believe rather in what the end goal is and what the eventual outcome is for not like not only for yourself, for your stakeholders, for your customers. If you kind of believe in that, then you will be definitely be able to kind of like reach out to a larger kind of audience once you get you'll have some backing. You can get some of that later, but that initial investment is something that's really key. And I think it's important to kind of then put your money where your mouth is, as far as investing in an idea that you want to promote to the rest of the world.
Yeah, but like yeah, in a long story short, to get the proof of concept for the business that we had in mind at that point in time, what we had pictured and envisioned for TreeWear, we'd put together about 5 lakhs, but it was a lot of more time and effort that we put into it that really like paid off. But again, it takes some time for that to really translate, especially if you're doing it with a
Bootstrapping.
more, yeah, exactly, like
If you're bootstrapping,
bootstrapping.
you kind of like instead of hiring a web designer, I decided I learn how to design web pages myself. Instead of hiring a social media manager, we started creating our own posts, putting them up ourselves. So you do kind of learn a lot along the way. And I think that if nothing else, that experience is invaluable for later in life. And you guys, as a younger generation, you have the time, you have the
Potential.
luxury, and to be able to make mistakes now and then kind of learn along the way. Because worst comes to worst, you'll learn a few skills, and your pocket might be a little bit lighter at the end of the day.
Right. Thank you for that answer. Just so this is the last question for the interview that we have today, and it's in the same lines. But we just wanted to know about how the profit margins and the cost of productions are different in the sustainability space, because of course it just involves way more, as you talked about in the previous questions, that mass production is something that's a bit more difficult. So how do you tackle those costs of productions, and how do your profit margins actually look like?
Yeah. So I mean, your profit margins, they do kind of vary, right? Like initially, when you start off a business, and um, you do kind of undervalue your own the amount of work that you're putting in. So you do kind of maybe take less because of that. Plus any environmental or social initiatives that you're paying out towards, those obviously also are taking out from the bottom line. So that is something to be considered. I think now as a company, we are kind of a little more confident in charging more for a product that we have put more effort into, because we see the value in what we're doing. So I would say that, that it definitely does change over time, where, like, initially might be giving discounts to people to try your product, to get them to understand what the benefits of the product are and things like that. So perhaps, for us, we went through a long period where we didn't increase the product price at all in the interest of getting it out to more customers. But what happened is that over time, you do kind of like see that your raw material prices are increasing and things like that, and your margins getting smaller and smaller. So you do need to kind of keep a check on that, and not undervalue the kind of work that you are doing in the face of rising costs. So we do try to keep a relatively similar profit margin to companies that are in a similar space to us. But like I said, it does vary over time. We have in the past kind of, just to get our products in the hands of people, like undervalued, or like
Discounted.
discounted the products, just to be able to increase our customer base and increase the awareness surrounding the idea and the products that we are making to kind of fulfill that need.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of approaches as well, right? Like our ingredients are very high quality. There's no doubt about that. Like in terms of using any synthetic elements in it, there's none of that. And there are brands that do the same thing as well. It's not like we're the only people that do it. But just to give you an example of how profit margins can work, sometimes it really also depends on the kind of brand that you're building, and again, the intent behind it. So Kama Ayurveda or Forest Essentials, I would just cite as a brand that uses natural ingredients. I know for a fact, we've tried their products. We know that the legitimacy of it is pretty much exactly along the lines of what we are promising our customers. In terms of using just essential oils, no synthetic additives or fillers in the products, and they are doing that. But the price difference of something that we have in our product range, which would compare to their product range, I think they would price it at least 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4x the price of our product, which is a lot. Like they're looking at a slightly different market altogether, and the intent for their thing is to just provide, like what they say in their name, like luxury Ayurveda. But I think for us as a brand, having that environmental angle attached to it, we're trying to price the products in a much more thoughtful way, so that we can get more people to join the movement, so to speak, and try our products and use it. We don't want to unnecessarily slap on a tag of like 900 bucks for a deo just because it's natural, and you don't make you believe that it's come from a field. Yes, that is the case, but we also want you to know that this is a product that can help you reduce your negative impact on the environment. And if we cut out a large group of people by increasing our price 3 or 4x, even though in some cases by using branding you can achieve that, the reach is far less, and that's something that we weren't too comfortable with.
Yeah,
We didn't want to make a product that people couldn't afford. It shouldn't be eco-friendly, but no one can get it, so no impact is made. It should be something where someone can opt in for it and actually,
it's being
yeah.
as inclusive as possible
So
with your pricing, just to be able to reach as many people, because we feel that okay, there's one, on one end you're trying to make your company survive, and on the other end you're trying to get people to really understand the problem and take a decision, or like make a change to really try and impact this problem that we're having as a planet and as a people. So I think that it is kind of balancing those two aspects, and that's how we've kind of tried to keep our pricing.
yeah.
um,
Great. I think that's it from our side with respect to the questions. And thank you again for such insightful and detailed answers. But we will be moving on to the questions that we have from the audience now. Over to Kevin, who will be leading the moderation with that.
Yeah, so let's get straight onto it, shall we? So the first question is, so narrowing down what you just said about profit and profit margins into the cost side of things, right? So do you think in the future the cost of organic products will go down? And if so, how? That's the question.
So I definitely think that they will go down to a certain extent. Like I mentioned earlier, I feel that people have been lulled into a false sense of how much things really cost because of mass production, fast fashion, things like that, clothes that, you can buy clothes for like 300 bucks or something. But obviously, the impact that those kind of clothes have on the environment is like maybe way worse than, a t-shirt maybe you get for like 990 or 1,000 bucks. That's an organic t-shirt. So I do think that there will be, as these things change, there will be a drop in price for certain commodities. But there is also the ceiling, the upper limit of how much of these products can be produced. For example, beeswax is a completely natural ingredient, right? It's made from bees, but bee populations are declining all over the world. So it might go down for a few years, but then it might skyrocket after that. So it is a bit hard to predict something like that. But the idea is that as more people start to adopt it, there will be more research and development into things that are similar to that. So, for example, instead of beeswax, you might be able to use a soy wax, which is, a vegan alternative, is semi-synthetic. There's a lot of soy being produced in the world anyways. And that might bring the price down. But then again, it might also raise some issues in the future with, over farming of soy and cutting down natural resources to put soy farms. So it is a very complex kind of uh, thing. But I do feel that, yeah, generally speaking, if more people adopt it, there will be more put into research and development of these new ingredients, or like, certain ingredients that will perhaps bring the price down, and help more people uh, be able to access these types of products.
Yeah, it really depends on the kind of spectrum that you're looking at. Like I think, yeah, because as technology also develops and different processes come by, now we've got like hydroponic farming. So like all these kind of things, depending on the space that you're in, there could definitely be like reduction in certain like raw materials and like commodities, the price of commodities, but only to a certain extent. Again, beyond that, then you have to question yourself, like this huge volume that I'm consuming, and plus all the other industries are also consuming, like is it now, or is it still like safe, or like still done in a way that it's not negatively impacting the planet. So I think that's something definitely to consider, is
And
like
conserving what we already have, right?
yeah,
Like, developing programs, like, like a program, a buyback program, or a thing where people actually develop a product where people have to use very little of the product at one time. Those type of things, companies don't like to do it because it cuts into their profit margin. So I think as things kind of progress, and as we've kind of evolved, maybe that kind of idea will go out the window, where you have to sell X many products or whatever, like, so hopefully I think it does kind of come down to that. And uh, at the end of it all, yeah.
Those are some wonderful insights into the future with some extremely potent examples. So next up is it's a recency question. How did COVID impact your business? And do you think, in your opinion, COVID was beneficial for for these recent trend of sustainable brands that we're seeing?
It's a kind of a tough one. I think a lot of businesses that we were working alongside with were hit pretty hard. Like the turn of the whole COVID thing in terms of when it actually happened, trust me, it's not a good time for anyone. But yeah, like you're saying, the lead up from that, and like how things and patterns have changed post COVID. have definitely changed the way that we do business. I think in some ways it's good, in some ways it's bad. But I think in overall being able to have a little bit more control of our business, and for businesses that were maybe at that right point in time, around the time that COVID happened, I think it's been a good thing overall, in the sense that it's kind of helped us gain a lot more control of our business. Now we've gone online, as a consequence of people going to shops less and going into stores and checking out stuff on shelves less. Uh, and that's given us a lot of control over how we can manage our inventory and how we manage a lot of our processes. So it's just that streamlining of it has made it a lot easier to kind of develop our business in the way, and like predict things a lot more, uh, like a lot better. But yeah, like because of that shift that's happened to online, I think offline business is always a little bit tricky because you work on consignment basis, you get some returns. COVID itself meant that a lot of, I like a stock from shops that were not able to open came back to us, so that was a little bit challenging as well. But yeah, I think overall, for a small business, I think definitely it's given us that ability to now. But see, I think that the perspective that's slightly different is that prior to this, we already had some kind of footing. I think for companies that were just starting prior to to COVID happening, it's kind of a difficult time still, because you're competing with a lot of people that have suddenly shifted online. People that existed offline are now also going online. People are now also coming online because it's so easy, like a lot more people. So yeah, it's hard to stand out of the crowd with marketing on social media. I mean, like, yeah, sure, I'm sure a lot of us spend time on Instagram. We probably come across a ton of ads, but then there's a lot of companies that are bidding for those ads to come up there. There's a limited amount of space to kind of work with, and then everyone's being creative to another degree. So now you have to kind of up your game in that aspect as well. So it's definitely pushed us, and it's challenging in that respect, because a lot of companies have moved online and have understood that potential, and the kind of resources that they would have normally been putting into like having a physical location with a lot of people physically working there, and cleaning and ACs and electricity bills. All those people that were going to put that money into that, even bigger companies have been like, no, forget that. We're just going to pump it into online. We'll like Unilever did. We'll create another brand. We'll call it Love the Planet. And now everyone's going to think it's what this thing to do. So that's a little bit of a challenge as well. But I think the operation of business, if I'm not mistaken, like if we take it even generationally, offline versus online is much simpler. Like if you've got your thing, the ball rolling, it's better to have the ball rolling now than it would be to have the ball rolling during being an offline business, just because of accountability and that kind of thing. So yeah, COVID has created that shift online, which I think overall has been a good thing. I think in terms of even resources and energy spent and all that in between of the equations that we do normally with offline shopping has kind of been eliminated. Yeah, and yeah, so it works out according to us from a larger perspective of even being more planet friendly.
Yeah, and I think that also during COVID, what's happened is that people have been talking about the environment a lot more. At least in the first few months, everybody's like, oh, I can see the sky again, and stuff like that. So I think that people really realized at that point how little they need. So I think that there's a certain amount of people who have just kind of become minimalist to a certain degree, or they've learned that they've learned to compost at home and things like that. So I think that definitely has been a shift towards sustainability for a lot of people. But on the other end, there's a whole bunch of people who have like missed consumption like really bad, and now there's that whole rebound effect of when things are opening up, you just have to go and like buy stuff that you've not bought, or
so that pent up energy,
it's,
like all our activities that we're used to not, like I guess panning out over the last couple of years. So yeah, that definitely there'll be that spike once things now have started to open and restart and all. But I think overall it's been a good learning experience. I hope for like people as a whole, like I think there was points in time where people were literally desperate for oxygen, and like it's kind of it's so weird to see that oxygen coming from like a plant, like in the sense not even like a plant isn't like a tree plant. I mean like a industrial plant. It seems so counterproductive. But I think all those kind of things have created a picture where people are a little bit more aware now. So I think it's kind of helped a company like ours that has been focusing on this and been like working towards this from when we started.
Yeah, moving away from the challenges and the lessons we learned from COVID. So do you think it's easier to start sustainable business in specific parts of the world? And if you do think so, where are these places?
I do think that see, having been to places outside of India and stuff like that, I think that there are definitely more developed markets as far as sustainability is concerned. I do feel like India does present a unique opportunity, though we are pretty far ahead in certain aspects, or we do try to be a little bit ahead, but maybe certain things do fall flat. For example, if you go to the States, even today, everything is packaged in a plastic bag. And I feel like, because we had this ban in India in 2014 or 15, I can't remember, on plastic bags and things like that. And there was a big hue and cry by all the plastic manufacturers that, there's like, what do we do and stuff like that. Now we're kind of in a space where a lot of people actually um, like do take their own bags and go grocery shopping, and it is a conscious decision, and that's great, but at the same time, a lot of people have reverted back to this 51 microns plastic bag, and it's just like skirting the law. And I think that it will sort of evolve and change. But I think the beauty of India and the market out here is that because there's so many people, the lessons that countries like the States or anywhere else, Europe or something, learn that took them maybe 20 years, it takes us only 5 years or 6 years to learn the same amount, because our problems, our environmental problems get so much worse so much more quickly. So we really do have to innovate and think on our feet in that regard. But it would definitely be better if the government would support businesses like this a little bit more.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, there is a bit of help, but there's no big differentiation between an MSME, for example, like ours, that is working towards a sustainability goal, and ones that are not. So those kind of things, there definitely is room for programs and stuff, because I believe that in other countries, I wouldn't be able to tell you the name of the countries because I'm not sure myself, but I do believe in Europe and certain places like Canada and stuff like that. They do have incentives for people who are starting these types of businesses in particular. So that would be something that would be great to have in our country, because I believe there's a lot more. There's a lot of innovation happening here. And innovation is happening by virtue of need out here. Whereas in certain countries it's a luxury to develop these products that are actually solving these problems. So I think that India is and countries like ours, India, China, some of the biggest countries are actually the litmus test for these sort of solutions that are coming out, and we could definitely improve in our country. But if the government does kind of take it in a serious manner, then we could definitely shift a lot quicker and overtake the West in terms of how beneficial it is to do sustainable business in our country.
Yeah, I think over there the standards are pretty high, but you do have to keep in mind we have actually studied over there. I've had a little bit of work experience in Australia. I think it comes with a slight drawback as well. Like so, there's a larger demand for this kind of stuff for sure in Western markets, but at the same time, you do have to work. And as a small business, it's tough. It's not always easy to do that, to work according to the rules and standards that are set in place. There are obviously reasons for that. And I think sometimes in India, we tend to lack on some of those from time to time, like the rigidity of those. But I think that flexibility and that lack of rigidity for a small business is really useful, because you can use that flexibility and that room to try different things out like we have. So in our initial stages, just experiment, try different things, try them out ourselves to make sure that we're giving people high quality stuff and that it worked the way that we intended it to, and then work towards our certifications and stuff step by step. So I think that informality in the way of working is a little bit better, like a more
Can be used to our
yeah,
advantage.
you could be used to your advantage in a place like India. Whereas doing the same thing in like a Western country or in the States, for example, and for whatever legal reason you get pulled up for this or that, it's probably going to be a lot more of an issue for you to deal with that, even as a small company. Whereas out here, at least you could kind of, I think there's a little bit of that informality that I'm talking about, which should give you that room to just work out the situation. Whereas over there, you're more legally bound and you have to work along that framework. So yeah, I think it's kind of like an unsaid thing, but yeah, the difference in how the places work does give you that flexibility to like um, innovate a little bit differently, I would say.
I believe we as consumers also hope that the authorities do take, may pay attention to the cause that you're trying to drive up with TreeWear. And
Yeah, I mean, look, we play by the book 100% with our company that way, but like behind the scenes, to be honest, it's not always 100% kosher with how things work around us. Like we see examples of, again, like it's so prevalent in our everyday lives, like corruption and stuff. It does work its way through all these things. Like if you're a company and you have enough money and you're willing to slip someone something a little bit extra here and there, you may get like a certification that you want, even though you haven't really taken the right steps to do it. I'll tell you firsthand that stuff does exist. It would be silly to ignore the fact that it does, because through every other aspect of our society, we do see some hints of that. So it is there, but yeah, again, and that the key to that is that the people who are in charge of the business, people who are in our position, who are providing you guys as consumers the products, should also be very respectful of that, and like make sure they do their due diligence rather than having to maybe slip someone some money for a certification. Like we also hope people work in a kosher way, but yeah, like I'm letting you guys know that there is that thing, that underbelly of that thing as well that does exist.
that's it for the Q&A. Thank you, Mishal and Mikail, for sharing your knowledge with the audience. As some of you guys in the audience might know, we are organizing a case study competition, keeping the agenda of this summit in mind. We are honored to have TreeWear along with us in this journey. So guys, do you have anything to share about the competition to prospective participants and hopefully the winner as well?
Yes. So I mean, we've been discussing this case study for some time now, and it's been probably something that Mikael and I have approached as part of our business for some time now, and put some thought into. And like we told you, we really like to consider the development of our products before we put them out there, the kind of impact that they have in the life cycle of the product, in the packaging, etc. And based on something that we've been like thinking of more recently, and an idea for a product, we've decided to put out a case study for you guys to approach in a creative manner, to help us problem solve, or as much as possible, if make more efficient the process of basically refilling one of our new products. So just to give you a very brief insight into what we're looking at, and for the sake of an example, we're looking at floor cleaner liquid, right? So something that you use around the home, instead of like a phenyl or something. We're looking at a natural alternative for that. And we're looking for an economically viable and also an eco-friendly way of providing our customers with this product, and also creating some sort of a system where they can refill it easily from time to time. Just to also make note that there are people who have already started working on this, type of concept. There's a company called Refillable within Mumbai. It's definitely something you'd want to check out while approaching this case study. But the case study basically involves creating a system to refill this particular product of a liquid floor cleaner with our customers, or building our customer base as well through a subscription model. And yeah, just making that as efficient as possible. I think the team from St. Xavier's Commercium has put together like a written format of the same, which it also includes the judging criteria that we'll be looking at when we deliberate, your inputs. So yeah, like essentially we'll just be looking for some kind of a written reply to the case study we've put out, considering environmental impact, economic feasibility, and also the overall experience for customers. And yeah, we'd like you to think along those few criteria and try to come up with a system for the same. So yeah, do read through the details though. There's a lot more in terms of, we've mentioned some of the prices that we deal with, so that you can use those to help you calculate the economic viability. We've mentioned certain forms of packaging that we use already, and we've mentioned the pros and cons as well of that. So that's something to consider as well. And feel free to do your own external research. I think you will need to some extent, to come up with, like a creative solution. So feel free to kind of have an open, open approach to it, generally speaking. And yeah, we're looking forward to what you guys have to, share with us. We'd really be interested in implementing it because it's something that we genuinely care about. So if you feel that an idea that you have can have a positive or reduce negative impact on the environment, I think this is like the perfect opportunity for that. And also for the people who are actually participating and make it through to the final round, the winners, etc. We are putting up some of our products as prizes. So yeah, we're excited for you guys to try those out as well through the process.
Yeah, we hope to see everyone present here today taking part in this case study competition. So to culminate things off, I now call upon Pratham Sharma to propose the vote of thanks.
Okay, so before we end the event, we would request you all to please turn your cameras on for a quick group photo. Uh, Anvi, can you please take the screenshot?
It's nice to see some of the faces behind the screens. I'm glad you could all join us. And yeah, it's great that you guys are putting something like this together. It's really important to talk about this kind of stuff in any capacity. So yeah, nice to have all you guys interacting with us.
Yeah. So with this, we come to the end of this enriching session, and we would like to take this opportunity to extend our gratitude to Mishal and Mikail Pardiwala for taking our time and giving us insights into the entrepreneurial side of sustainability, and help us understand certain topics that are crucial to the industry. We would also like to thank Dr. Rajendra Shinde and Dr. Savaiba Pirani ma'am, and thanks to the collaboration of Commercium and Xavier's Environmental Committee, without which this session would not have been possible. Last but not the least, we would like to thank our participants for being such an encouraging and supportive audience. We hope you all have enjoyed this session. With this, we end day one of our sustainability summit and are looking forward to the next stage by Mr. Shailesh Tyagi from EY India, who will give us a glimpse into corporate sustainability. Do not forget to register for our case competition. We will be shutting those applications soon. Those who wish to take part in this competition, please do register right away. And those who have already registered, please join the Google Classroom, without which the case won't be visible to you. The case will go live today at 7 p.m. If you guys have any issues joining the Google Classroom, please contact us on our email ID commerciumsaviors@gmail.com. If you've already registered on D2C or our Google form, we've already received the registrations. Before we leave the meeting, we would like you all to please fill up a registration form which is sent in the chat box. It will help us plan many such enriching events. Thank you once again for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again in our upcoming events.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you,
you so
guys.
much. Thanks for having us.
If
Thank
anyone
you
has
so
any
much.
questions as well,
Thank
feel free
you.
to contact us, email us, or whatever. We're happy to answer questions externally also, or anything that you may have, any ideas that you may want to like run through, or any doubts that you may have. We're always happy to help when it comes to, if you guys are looking at like a eco-friendly, business or startup idea or something. All right. Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for your
so
time,
much. Take care,
guys.
guys.
All the best.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye bye.